This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. A good Shiur, a gebenchte Shiur. Hope Yom Tov was nice for everyone. Ban Sham should be mevarich everyone with a year of good health, gesund, menuchas hanefesh, harchavas hadas, nachas, parnasa, v'malei Hashem kol mishas libchem l'toiva. Bruchim abam to the Kolel Agur de Pirka. Here we are on Shem Gedalia. Today is the yahrzeit of my grandmother, Tzina Bas Henarasha. She was the daughter of the last Rav of Sachachav, and she survived the years of horror. She came to America, and together with my grandfather, L'havdim ben Chaim L'chaim, they dedicated their lives to rebuild the Sheiris HaPleita in Europe and then in America. So her Neshama Shem Naliyah should be Malitza Yishara for her whole mishpacha and for all of Klal Yisrael. Chodesh Tishrei, the Bnei Yissaschar reveals to us an amazing remez, and he utilizes a aspect of gematria which I always find very intriguing, and that is, aside from the fact that every Hebrew letter is ascribed a numerical value, there's a concept that nekudos also have numerical value. Each dot is the equivalency of a yud, is 10. Each line is the equivalency of a vav, which is 6. So, for example, a chirik, which is 1 dot, is 10. A shva, which is 2 dots, is 20. A tseire, which is 2 dots, is 20. A sega, which is 3 dots, is 30. A cholam is 1 dot, is 10. A patach is a horizontal vav, is 6. A kamatz is a horizontal vav, and then a dot underneath is 16, and so on and so forth. And the word Tishrei, Tavshin Reish Yud, is numerical value 910, but we know there's a chirik under the taf, that's 10, a shva under the shin is 20, a tseirei under the reish is another 20, a total of 50. The gematria of Tishrei is 960, which is the gematria of mikveh tahara li Yisrael, because we know that a mikveh is 40 sa. How many lug in a mikveh? So there's a concept. I remember I had a Rabbi in 7th grade, Rabbi Milstein. He taught us a procedure called Blaksa 6463. Blaksa, Beis Lamed Kuf Samach Aleph, 6463. There's 6 Bayim. Bay stands for a Beya. Lamed stands for a Lug. Kuf stands for a Kav. Samach stands for a Sa. Aleph stands for an Efa. So Blaksa 6463. There's 6 eggs in a Lug, 4 Lug in a Kav, 6 Kav in a Sa. So how many eggs in a Sa? 6 times 4 is 24, times 6 is 144. And then there are 6 Kav in a Sa, so 144 times 6 is... What's 144 times 6? I'm better, because we're trying to calculate how many lug are in 40 sa. So you have 4 lug in a kav, 6 kav in a sa, that's 24. 24 times 40, what's 24 times 40? Is 960. So we know that there are 960 lug in 40 sa in a mikveh. Now what's the significance of 960? The Yerushalmi tells us that even though the Bavli says Beria is not even batel, but Elef, but the Yerushalmi disagrees, and the Yerushalmi is of the opinion that a Beria is batel in 960. And that's the concept of a mikvah, because a person goes into the mikvah, he's a Beria, and he is, so to speak, mevatel and matayar himself in 960 lugim in the mikveh. In other words, 4 lug in a kav, 6 kav in a sa, 24 lug in a sa, times 40 is 960. Now, how many hours are in the Yemei Ratzain, beginning Rosh Chodesh Elul till Yom Kippur? Also, there are 40 days, 960 hours. That's the teaching of Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. The same way that a mikvah is matar a person in 960 lugin of water, so too a person can be matar themselves in 960 hours of Elul and the Asar Simei Tshuva. Now, according to this, it comes out that the same way if somebody, so to speak, was thrown into the mikvah, whether he likes it or not, it renders him tahar. So too, during this time of the year, whether you're prepared, whether you're doing what you need to do, but no Jew goes through these 40 days of the year unchanged and remains unpurified. But this period of the year definitely has a very powerful and profound impact on a person's life and closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So just realize that every hour of the Yemei Elul and the Yom Noraim are hours of Tahara. And using that analogy, we go to the famous Mishnah at the end of Masechta Yuma, where the Rabbi Akiva, the great Tana, says, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Ashreichem Yisrael, Lifnei mi atem metarem, before whom do you purify? Umi metar eschem, and who purifies you? Avichem Shabashamayim, your Father in heaven. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, V'zarakti aleichem mayim tahirim utahartem. As the pasuk says, I will sprinkle on you the purifying waters and purify you. And the pasuk says, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem ma mikvah metar es hatmeim af HaKadosh Baruch Hu metaher es Yisrael. So this Mishnah, is citing and invoking two types of purification. The purification of the purifying waters and the purification of the mikvah. And why exactly, what is the significance of invoking these two types of purifications? So Rav Pam would say over in the name of Tzvi Hersh, Av Bezdin of Kavna, the son of Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, he would always say over that the Tana of this Mishnah intentionally is invoking these two types of purification, because we know fundamentally there is a big difference between the Tara of a mikvah and the Tara of the purifying waters. And that is, the Tara of the mikvah requires complete and total immersion. One has to make sure that the every single part of one's body is immersed in the mikvah. There cannot be any band-aid or bandage on a person. There cannot be any interposition on a person. If a person goes to the mikvah with his hand sticking out, 0% of him has been rendered pure. If a person goes to the mikvah with his finger sticking out, we don't say, well, the majority of your body is pure, just your finger needs purification. No. We say that if even one hair is sticking out of the mikvah, it does not accomplish anything at all. The person is just as tameh as before, even though 99.9% of his body immersed. And this is analogous to tshuva shalema, a complete and perfect tshuva. For a person to achieve the perfect tshuva that is discussed in the Rambam, that is discussed in Rabbeinu Yonah, where a person completely regrets all of his misdeeds, and a person confesses all of his wrongdoing, and a person abandons all improper activities and midos, that is a madrega we all aspire to. That is a level that we all hope for and yearn for, but it is a very difficult level to achieve for a person to render himself a beria chadasha, a completely new entity, completely changed, completely transformed. It is very difficult for a person to reach that madrega of tshuva. However, Marv Rabbi said there is another type of tshuva which is more within our ability and capability, and this type of tshuva is analogous to the purifying waters, because when it comes to the mayim hatahirim, they are very fundamentally different from the tefillah and the mikvah, because the purifying waters, Rabbi say, do not require total immersion. They do not require that one's entire body be immersed in the purifying waters. but instead, as long as the purifying waters touch the tip of your finger, you already attain a degree of purity. You already gain a level of tahara. And there is therefore a tshuva that is analogous to this type of purity, and that is what we call a partial tshuva, some degree of tshuva, a step of tshuva, where a person says, look, I'm not going to change everything this year, I'm not going to become a completely new person. However, there are a few things that would prove to be easy for me to change. I can make a few small adjustments in my life, and at least I'm doing some type of tshuva. I may not be doing tshuva that's analogous to the immersion in the mikvah, but at least I'm doing a tshuva that's analogous to coming into contact with the purifying waters. And if someone is even able to do that type of tshuva, that is also a tahara, that is also a tshuva, that also will render a person tahar and will be a great zuchus for a person. Rav Pam would say, Hine nizkaru kan shnei inyane tahara, hazah, the sprinkling of the water, utvila, and the immersion in the purifying waters. Ubir Hagoin Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Avbezin of Kavna, the son of Hagoin Rav Yitzchak Achanan, and it's brought in the Sefer Nesiva Shmuel, that fundamentally different is the tara of the mechatas from the tara of a mikvah. A mikvah is not metaher. A mikvah is not metaher the tameh until his whole body enters the mikvah, and even one hair cannot be sticking out. Masha'in came the mechatas, that if it fell on one limb, even on the tip of your finger or on the tip of your lip, the hazah is effective. Likewise, in tshuva also, there are two levels of tshuva. There's a Baal tshuva who repents with all of his heart and all of his soul and is transformed into a different person. And there are those who do tshuva with a little bit of inspiration, and by fixing a detail or a few details. And therefore, regarding this, we have two psukim that teach that if a person does not have the ability to reach the great madrega of tshuva on the level of tefillah, al yisyaesh, do not give up hope, do not be despondent, do not feel hopeless. Yishtada liyos hakapana about tshuva mi madrega hashniya bebechinas hazah. One should try to be on the level of Baal tshuva, on the madrega of sprinkling. V'im amnam hazah eina metaheres legamri. Meaning, if the sprinkling, the truth is, sprinkling with the purifying waters does not render a person completely tahar, because you still need to go to the mikvah. Mikamaka marehi haschala. It's a good start. V'hachshara, it's a preparation for complete tahara. And we say, haba letaher mesayin oisai. One who comes to become tahar, Hashem helps them. And as the Gra explains, the Mishnah, mitzvah gareres mitzvah, that every mitzvah a person does, it causes to reside on a person a ruach of tahara that draws him to mekayim more mitzvahs. So too, through a little bit of tahara, a person will be drawn l'tzad HaKedusha more and more, as the pasuk says, v'hiskadishtem v'yisem kedoshim. A person is mekadesh himself a little bit from below, and they will be mekadesh him a lot from above. And we should take hold of this precious thought of encouragement, that if we're not able to do tshuva on the madrega of tefillah in a mikvah, it is not withheld from us. It is not beyond us to do tshuva comparable to hazah, as long as it's something significant. Meaning, one should take one small area of their life, something significant, something that person knows they'll be able to do. Whether it's to be careful to spend an extra 10 minutes a day in Limanat Torah, whether it's for a person to learn the laws of Lashon Hara at a Shabbos table, whether a person's makabel not to speak Lashon Hara during the Shabbos meals, but some type of small Kabbalah where even though a person's not drastically changing their entire lifestyle, but one is making a meaningful improvement on the madrega of tefillah of the Hazah and the Mayim HaTahirim. And in this regard, we could bring in the incredible gematria of Reb Shamshon Me'ashtapoli. As we know, the Gemara says in Yuman Daf Peivav, Amar Rabbi Levi, Gedoyla Teshuva Shemagas Ad Kisei HaKavod. Teshuva is great, that it reaches the throne of glory. As the Pasuk says, Shuva Yisrael Ad Hashem Elokecha. Reb Shamshon Me'ashtapoli says, an amazing gematria. What is the numerical value of Teshuva? Tav Shin 700 and Vav 07 and Vez 09. Teshuva is gematria 714. Well, Reb Shamshon Me'ashtapoli utilizes the following type of gematria, and this type of gematria is already employed by Rashi and Chumash, as pointed out by the Mizrahi. We know in Parshas Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu takes the Torah and he explains it Ba'er Heitev. And Rashi says, what does Ba'er Heitev mean? 70 languages. And the question is, how do Chazal know that Ba'er Heitev is 70 languages? Where do we see in the words explained well that Moshe explained it in 70 languages? So the Mizrahi says like this: take the word Heitev, you take the Hey, that's 5, and then you take the Hey and the Yud, that's 15, and then you take the Hey, Yud, and Tes, that's 24, and then you take the Hey, Yud, Tes, Vez, that's 26, and you add it up. 5 plus 15 is 20, plus 24 is 44, plus 26 is 70. This I call the system of gematria, the Nachman Meuman system of gematria. So for all those who couldn't go to Uman this year, so at least we're using that type of gematria, and that is, there is a system of gematria where you take the first letter, and then you add the first 2 letters, and then you add the first 3 letters, and then you add the first 4 letters. And if you do that system to the word Heitev, you get a gematria of 70. Well, likewise, friends, if you take the words Kisei HaKavod, let's do that. Kisei is 20, Kaf is 20, Kaf Samach is 80, Kaf Samach Aleph is 81, Kaf Samach Aleph Hey is 86, Kaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf is 106, Kaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vez is 108, Chaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vez Vav is 114, Kaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vav Vez Vav Daled is 118. You add up 20 and 80 is 100, plus 81, 181, plus 86, 266, plus 106, 372, plus 108, 380, 480, plus 114 is 594, plus 118 gets you 712, plus the 2 words is 714. Gematria Teshuva. If you take the words Kisei HaKavod and you do use this system, the Chaf plus the Chaf Samach plus the Chaf Samach Aleph plus Chaf Samach Aleph Hey plus Chaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf plus Chaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vez plus Chaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vez Vav plus Chaf Samach Aleph Hey Chaf Vez Vav Daled, you get Teshuva, the gematria of Teshuva. And again, this teaches us that amazingly, that why is Teshuva only gematria Kisei HaKavod when we do that to the Kisei HaKavod? In other words, Kisei HaKavod straight up is not gematria Teshuva. It's only when you take the Chaf and then the Chaf Samach and the Chaf Samach Aleph and the Chaf Samach Aleph Hey, then it's gematria 714. Then it's gematria Teshuva. This teaches us that there's only one way to get the Kisei HaKavod. One will never get to the Kisei HaKavod merely by jumping up in one step and reaching the Kisei HaKavod in one fell swoop. The only way to get there is behadraga, step by step by step. First the chaf. First you take one step, you work on one area, then you work on another area, and you add a third thing. The only way to reach the Kisei HaKavod is if somebody does it behadraga, step by step by step. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. The only way human beings could make change is a step at a time. In fact, the Psikta Rabasi brings that Rabbi Eliyahu HaKohen Dushnitzer would say over, let's go to number 4 for a moment. On the pasuk, Shuva Yisrael Ad Hashem Elokecha. It's a mashal to a ben melech. It's a mashal to the son of the king that was very far from his father, 100 days away. So the son didn't want to go because he felt it was too far. So the son's friend said, "Go back to your father." The son said, "I can't." So the father then responds, "No, you go as much as you're able to, and I will respond, I'll come to you the rest of the way." So too the Ribbon Shalom says, "Shuva Elai, you return to me, va'ashuva aleichem, and I will return to you." So the Ribbon Shalom does not expect us to go all the way by ourselves. The Ribbon Shalom just asks of us, take a few steps, go as much as you can, do what you're able to do, and if you do what you're able to do, and you accomplish what you're able to accomplish, and take the steps that you are able to make, then I will respond in kind. The great tzaddik, Rabbi Eliyahu HaKohen Dushnitzer, he said over that when the Chafetz Chaim discovered that when he found out about the invention of the elevator, the Chafetz Chaim was extremely happy and gratified. And he felt that the elevator is a perfect example of the spiritual ascent and the climb in Ruchnias, where all a person has to do is press a button and put his best foot forward and step on. And once you step on, the elevator will carry you the rest of the way. So too it's with Ruchnias. Ribbon Shalom does not expect us to reach the Kisei HaKavod in one fell swoop. Ribbon Shalom does not expect us to get all the way up to Shamayim in one fell swoop. We have to do our little part. We have to press the button. The doors will open, we'll put one step forward, and then we could expect great siyata d'shmaya from the Ribbon Shalom to carry us the rest of the way up. I once heard from Rav Shlomo Warman, Zechatzak Lavracha, who said over in the name of the Satmar Rebbe, the pasuk says, "Tashev enoish ad daka, va'toimer shuva b'nei adam." Literally, God crushes a person to daka, to pulverization, and He tells a person, "Do tshuva, do tshuva." However, the Satmar Rebbe explained as follows: we know it's so hard to reach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's Yud Kei Vav Kei, 26. So Hashem says, not a problem. Tashev enoish adadaka. God positions a person adadaka on the madrega of daka. Daka is gematria 25. The Rebbe Shalom says, look, I take you most of the way there. Now all you need to do is reach out a little bit and reach for me, but I've already positioned you adaka on the 25th level. Now all you need to do is stretch out your hand and show some effort, and I will respond in kind. We know that this procedure and this phenomenon is expressed in Shir HaShirim, where it says, Pischi li, Rabbi Yesa Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. God says to Israel, Banai, my children, Pischu li Pesach Echad Shal Tshuva Kechuda Shamachat. Open up for me one opening of tshuva, like a needle, like the point of a needle. Not like the hole of a needle, not like the eye of a needle, but like the sharp part of a needle. God says, just open up your heart for me. A little bit. Show me some effort. Show me some change. Show me some willingness to improve yourself and come close to me. And when you make that little opening, I will open up for you. Vani poiseach lachem sachim. I will open for you openings. Sheyu agalois, that wagons, ukronios, and covered wagons, nechnasos by. In fact, the Rav Meir Shapiro, as told over by the Goin, Rabbi Yitzchak Flaxer, once came to visit a city, the city of his birth. And on the way to Shul, he was accompanied by one of the honorable people in the city, Rav Alter Frizent, a smart individual, a Talmid Chacham. And the Rav Meir Shapiro turned to him, he said, "What should I speak about?" So this Rav Alter said, jokingly, a Jew comes into a shul and he begins with Ma Toivu. So Rav Meir Shapiro was pleased with that wise suggestion, and the drasha he gave until today rings in my ears. Chazal tell us on the words Ma Toivu Ayalecha Yaakov that Bilam Harasha looked at how goodly the Jewish tents were. Chazal say he saw she'ein pischeim mechuvanim. He saw their doorways were not aligned. Says Rameir Shapiro, of course we know the Pasha Pshat. The simple interpretation is he saw the modesty, the chastity of the Jewish people, that their doorways were not aligned. One cannot see the private affairs in someone else's home. But Rameir Shapiro interpreted homiletically. He saw the doorways of the Jewish people and God are not aligned. He saw that what God expects from us is not what we expect from Him. In other words, all God expects from us is a tiny little opening. Pischu li pesach katan kechudoi shamachat. God says to us, just open up for me. A small opening. The sharpness of a needle. All I ask of you is you open up a tiny bit, and corresponding to that, on a much greater ratio, I will open up for you kechudoy shal kepischay shal ulam. Bilam said, wait a second. Why is it that all God expects from the Jewish people is a small little opening, and He will respond so much greater than the offering of the Jewish people? Is that a fair relationship? Why does God show them so much favoritism? Shouldn't God say, commensurate with your efforts, I will open up for you? And yet God doesn't do that. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, you open for me kepischay shel machat, and I'll open for you kepischay shel ulam. I will open up for you infinitely greater than the efforts that you make. And therefore, Bilam saw that our openings are not aligned. Ra she'ein pischei mechuvanois. He saw that the openings are not aligned. He saw the great love Hashem has for us. That He says, my dear children, just press the button, put your best foot forward, and step in, and I will open up the world for you. When Rameir Shapiro finished his speech, one of the Roshei HaKahal of the city, who was more secular, he pulled out of his pocket a pen, a gold pen, and he handed it to Rameir Shapiro to show him his appreciation for a wondrous drasha. And I always like to think that this is the yisoid of the message of Teshuva, where God says to us, you open up a small hole, and I will open up the world. And perhaps this is the symbolism and the allegory of the shofar. We know the shofar has a small opening on the bottom, and yet on the top of the shofar it's open wide. The small opening represents what Hashem expects of us, what we have to do, what is our responsibility. And then min hashamayim, Hashem opens up for us a great opening. That is the message of the shofar, that min hameitzar karasika, that if we open min hameitzar, a small opening, anani v'amerchavka, the Rebbeinu Shalom opens wide for us, and He opens up the world for us. Marv Rabbi said, today is Tzom Gedalia, and we mentioned last night some of the secrets of Tzom Gedalia. I'll just share with you very briefly. And that is very interesting, that Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, there are many ways to spell it. In fact, there are 4 ways to spell it, but one particular way is the Yud is spelled Yud Vav Daled, Gematria 20. The Hey is spelled Hey Hey, 10. The Vav is Vav Vav, 12, and the Hey is Hey Hey, 10. So 20, 10, 12, and 10 is Gematria, 52, Ben. And this represents the 52, the name of Hashem spelled out, B'miloi Hein. So the Yud Kei Vav Kei has Gematria of Hey, has Gematria of 52. But Elohim could also be 52. How's that? Aleph Lamed Hey and then a Yud and Mem is 5 letters. If you spell each of those 5 letters B'miloi, Aleph spelled Aleph Lamed Pei, Lamed spelled Lamed Mem Daled, Hey spelled Hey Hey, Yud spelled Yud Vav Daled, and then Mem spelled Mem Mem, you get 13 letters. And if you take those 13 letters and you spell them out, in other words, you spell out the Aleph and the Lamed and the Pei, then you get a 34. So Elohim could be broken down 5, 13, 34. Gematria 52. Gematria Gedalia. Gedalia, it has a Hey for the 5 letters of Elohim, has Yud Gimel for the 13 of the Miloi of Elohim, and has a Lamed Daled for the 34 of the Miloi de Miloi. That's the secret of Gedalia, that's 52. Ben, which is 52. And then Achikam. Achikam represents the forces of Dinim. Aleph is Af, Ches is Chema, Yud is Yashches, like we say in Barachim Yichap Rabban V'la Yashches. Kuf is Ketzef, Mem is Mechale and Meshaber. This was, we know that on Rosh Hashanah, the Pasuk says in Eiv, that the Bnei Elohim stood in judgment to try to prosecute against the Jewish people. So Rosh Hashanah is a time where the forces of Dinim tried to come and instigate and prosecute against us. Elohim, of course, is represented by Gedalia, the forces of Dinim. Ben is 52. Achikam are the forces of Dinim. And therefore we fast right after Rosh Hashanah to try to be mevatel the forces of Dinim that were prevalent on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a Yom Hadin. In order to be mevatel the koichos of din, we fast Tzoim Gedalia 52. Amazingly, how many days are there between Tisha B'Av and Tzoim Gedalia? There are 52 days in between Tisha B'Av and Tzoim Gedalia, indicating an equivalency between the death of Gedalia and the burning of the Beis Hamikdash, as the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, Shkula Misas Tzadikim Kisreifas Beis Elokeinu. The death of the righteous is the equivalency of the destruction of the temple. Now, that is why after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, even the animals were desolate from the land of Israel for 52 years. Gematria Behema, 52. But there's another reason why we fast right after Rosh Hashanah. What happened to Gedalia? Gedalia was assassinated by Yishmael. And you would think that Yishmael had some heart in him and some conscience in him. And when he was davening on Rosh Hashanah and he was saying Unasana Toikef, you would think he had some stirrings of tshuva. But at the end of the day, when Rosh Hashanah was over, he remained the same Rasha that he was. And he did not allow Rosh Hashanah to change him. Because here's a question, why would we fast on Tzom Gedalia, the death of Gedalia? Gedalia was a great person, but certainly there were many, many great people, great Jews that were killed, and we don't have a fast day for. Why do we specifically fast on the day of the assassination of Gedalia? The tragedy was not just Gedalia was killed, although that was a great tragedy. The tragedy was, could it be that a Jew goes through Rosh Hashanah and he remains unchanged and he's able to commit the same miserable Avera that he would have done before? Can somebody pass 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah and not become a different person? That's the tragedy of Tzom Gedalia. The tragedy of Tzom Gedalia is a wasted Rosh Hashanah, says the Marsha. A wasted Rosh Hashanah is a great tragedy indeed. And therefore it behooves us that as we're now in the aftermath of Rosh Hashanah, we need to try to come up, as we started this year with some type of commitment, Kabbalah, even if it's not a major change, but some change, something that we could say this year, once a day we're going to take out a siddur and say Asher Yatzar from a siddur. Or once a day we're going to say a kind word to somebody. We're going to go out of our way to call someone up and be mechazik them and strengthen them and give them chizuk. Or maybe all of the suggestions. But something, we cannot let a Rosh Hashanah go by without allowing ourselves to be affected by the purity of the hour. So Marv Rabbi, may the Rebbeinu Shem give us siyata d'shmaya to open up our neshama, is to be in touch with the sanctity and the holiness of this Zman of the year. And Be'ezus Hashem, Rebbeinu Shem should help us make some inroads in the realm of Teshuva. And I wish everybody a Gemar Chasima Tova, a good Yar, a Gebench Yar, Kol Tov. Baruch Tiyah. Have an easy fast, everyone. Kol Tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.